Hey guys, Mike from Feed the Bot Marketing here with a tutorial that I'm actually pretty excited for. So very recently I actually learned that the randomizer inside Manychat is not as reliable as we were thinking it was. Thank you very much to Mackenzie who informed me of that. So after I found that out, it was my mission to kind of go ahead and create something to fill that gap, and I think I've done pretty well, and there may be future versions. So what we're going to do is, very first, I am going to show you guys how it works, how to access it, and how to get it. I do have a template. I'll give it to you. Don't worry. Okay. The next thing that I will do is I will actually go through and show you exactly how I built it. So you guys can learn a little bit of behind the scenes stuff. So for those who aren't interested in learning how to build it, we'll go through the most important stuff first, how it works. So we're going to go through real quick here. So in the template, there are a couple of comments. So you must do this first. In the external request, under request or response mapping, you can create your own field, save the response to instead of mine. Just make sure they're all number CUF fields, except for the external is random within percent. That one should be a text CUF field. Then change your condition to match and edit what you want. I also have instructions on how to use it, but we'll go over those in just a second. So to access the external request, you just click it here, click on this, it pops up the external request. It is a GET request because we are sending stuff to the custom server and it's sending information back. So I'm actually going to show you right now here. So this here, this is the URL to my server, right? There's a website, and then after this, this is what the server is looking for. It's looking for this get random, right? That's saying, okay, access the app that I just built. All right. Anything after this question mark is called a URL parameter. So min equals 0, so I'm setting my minimum number to 0, and max equals 1000, I'm setting my maximum number to 1000. And percentage equals 10, so I'm setting my percentage chance to 10. I want a 10% chance for somebody to win after generating a completely random number from 0 to 1000. Alright, and then token here, this is an authorization. We'll talk about this just a little bit. Basically, you need this token to remain the same here. But the really cool thing is you can go and change this stuff on the fly. So, you do an external request for 0 and 1000, and all of a sudden you just duplicate the external request, move it over to another flow, change these numbers. It can be very, very easily changed. We're going to leave these here for right now. What I was talking about response mapping, if you go in here, well, let's go back to the response first, and let's go and test the request, okay? So I just sent a request to my server, and it sent the results back. So min 1, and we'll talk about that when we get into building it, max 1000, percentage 10. The random number it generated was 741. That is not within a 10% chance because we're looking for the lowest 10% of the number. So we're looking for anywhere between 1 and 100. This does not fall within 100, so it returns a false statement. So if you look at response mapping, I decided to add all of these in. I could have just put the result as false and then played around with that, but I wanted to make sure you guys had access to everything. Okay, so you have results to min. This is your min, so you can actually write what your min is if you want to record it. Results.max, this is your max. CUF, again, if you can see, these are number, 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 text, just like I said in the instructions. This one here is the important one, and this one too. This is the actual random number generated, and then this is the result if it's within your percentage. So these two are the really important ones that you can play around with. Alright, but I'm actually going to show you this. So I created a message with all of the text fields, with all the fields here that we put in the response mapping. I created a message that shows the value of all of those. Alright, so let's go ahead and save that. Then what we're going to do, we'll publish, we'll preview, and then we'll open Messenger, and you can see and it just gave me another one. So current settings and results, minimum 1, maximum 1000, percentage chance 10. Remember, those are all the URL parameters that we passed to the server. The random number it generated was 534. Again, that is not between 1 and 100, so it did return a false. Right? Now, if we go back to our template here, you can do a lot of different things with it. So what this condition does is it checks whether the that number falls within your percentage that you put in there. So if it does, it's true. So if it's true, okay, well, let's go ahead and let's deliver the winner flow. And you can do multiple winners here by, so when you do the are they a winner, okay, if it's true, yes. Check if you have, you know, all of your winners. So let's say you wanted 5 winners. If you already have 5 winners, go ahead and deliver the consolation prize, even if they were technically a winner, right? If you don't have 5 winners, go ahead and deliver the winner flow and update your winner count. So honestly, I mean, you can do a lot of stuff with the true, but you can even do a lot of stuff with the just generating random numbers. So if you wanted a random number for any reason, you can just go ahead, throw this in here, and you can get a random number. So it tests the request, and every single time I test it, it's going to give me a different result. 515, 590, 976, 573, 616, 843. See, these are all false. 864, 200. Again, they're all false. And we're only sitting at about a 10% chance. So eventually we'll get one. There's one. There's a true right there. Bam. Okay. So that is kind of how it works. So to use it, again, when you open external requests, you'll see the following. This talks all about the URL parameters, what to set them to, what not to set them to. So I recommend when you're setting your URL parameters to have the numbers max not less than 10. It will work that way, but if you're doing 10% on a 10, you're sitting there at a 1. If you do 10% on a, let's say like a 1 to 5, it'll still calculate it, but it'll work a lot better if you pick a higher range number. Okay, so we've gone through all of that, talked about all of that, talked about the token and everything. Now let's get into the fun part, how the heck this thing works. Okay, so first I talked about the server. Okay, this is actually the JavaScript. This is the server that JS that I used and created, and we'll go over all of this, how all of it works, what it does, and then I will also give you guys a copy of the server.js. I actually created this on glitch.com. You can see it right up here. Glitch is an awesome website because it allows you to create free servers, and these servers are really cool because they're running all the time. They're looking for responses, but when they don't have any traffic to them, they go into kind of like a sleep mode. So it allows you to create tons and tons of servers for different requests. So let's go ahead and get started at the beginning. So just file name up here, server.js. This is a Node.js app. So that's all this stuff here, initialize the project and everything. None of that has anything to do with the stuff that we've got going on down here. That's all just required in order for the app to work. Right here it says generate random number between given range, see if it falls within percentage. I got my information right over here. I just put version 0.1. I got a couple of different things I may add in the future, but right now we're going to leave that the same. So app.get, because this is a get request, remember when we go back here, if you look in your external request, it's a get request because we're sending information to it and we want to get a response back, right? If we wanted to send a bunch of send a response to them, you know, we'd use a post, but right now we're using a get. Okay, then it says /get random. Now if you look right in here, it's basically saying, okay, when you go to the server, if they are using this, then it's going to go here. The really cool thing is you could do multiple. So I could have a get random script here, and maybe I could have a scratch off script up here, or have it send a funny GIF up here. Maybe, it's slash GIF instead, and that can be a whole nother set of code. To where if I typed in slash GIF, did my whatever URL parameters I requested there, I could get a funny GIF sent to me. So really learning JavaScript and how these servers and responses and requests work will open you up to a lot of possibilities when it comes to bots and other things. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So here we are putting a bunch of different variables. We're getting them defined. So I have my min variable set to request.query.min. Okay, so that's basically stating I want this variable set to whatever they put in the URL parameter called min. Okay, so if we go back here and look at our URL parameters, right now min equals 0. That means when this pulls and sets this variable min, it's actually setting it to 0. And I'll show you right now. I've got a write-up down below as well for when you guys are viewing the file. Var max does the same thing. So we're looking at the max part of the URL, and it's pulling this number and it's assigning it to this variable max. All right, percent does the same thing. It pulls percent. That's why all of these say request.query dot their variable or their URL parameter. Okay, so percent should pull 10, so that's assigning it to 10. And then this token. All right, so what this token is, it's kind of like a password, right? So let's say you didn't want somebody to have access to your server, and I'll show you how it works right now. So let's test a request, right? It says 200 OK, and that means our request was good. And here's all of our results, right? So it generated a random number. It gave us all of our results. Now let's say we altered that token, okay, or we didn't have the correct token. Well, now we don't have access to the server, right? So we did the test request. What I actually set it up to do was say, okay, sorry, you've got no permission to use this. So every single result is populated by no permission. But once you put the correct token back in, bam, now you've got your full functionality. Okay, now you don't want to define your token in here you don't want people to be able to open up your server.js and see, or any other JavaScript file for that matter, and see what your password is, because then they could change theirs to match and then get access to the server, right? So what you can do is you use an environment variable. So that's what this is here. Var server dot our server token equals process.env dot student underscore group. So what this is saying is, okay, let's look in the environment file for the student underscore group environment key, and then we assign that value to this variable called server token. So if we go into environment, you can see here it is, student group, and then there's the value that we put, 7/16/2019, which is just today's date. Nothing difficult. So you can change that to match whatever you want. The really cool thing is, like when you're looking at stuff like bot blocks, or even Zapier for that matter, that's what these guys are doing. They're taking information from Manychat, they're passing them into their own server, and then they're sending responses back. Zapier and bot blocks, they do it with a bunch of different programs, because there are a bunch of different, all these other programs, Gmail, Google Sheets, and everything like that. They all have APIs that you can interact with through JavaScript and through like dynamic requests. So what they're doing is, they make people pay for this service. They give them a token. As long as you have that token when you're making your requests, I could put in, okay, so let's do. So I can put in as many businesses as I want in here, right? And each business can have their own token, and it's going to check what the values of those tokens are as things come in, and if they don't have the correct token, they don't get access. This is how you can charge for some of these services, and coincidentally how BotBlocks and Zapier and everything does it. So sorry, Zapier, not Zapier, because Zapier makes you happier. Okay, back to the fun. So we went over the tokens. The result variable, I need to define it. If you don't, you get an error, right? Because it doesn't know what it is. That's all the error is. So we need to define it. But right now it has no no value. So we just set it no value, but we do define it. And then percent decimal. Okay, so what we do is we take our percent, which you can already see was request.query.percent, meaning we're taking this number 10, okay, and we are dividing it by 100 to get our decimal. So the value of this right now with 10 divided by 100 is 0.1, right? So our percent decimal should have a value of 0.1 right now. Now, if min equals 0, we set min to 1, because I didn't want to have instructions or anything like that for them to do that, but because you're working with decimals and rounding up and everything like that, this works a lot easier if you're starting at 1 instead of 0. So I just change it to 1 right there. Now, what it's going to do, the first thing, each of these, the double slash like this, that's a comment. Anytime you have a comment in there, you can write whatever you want, and it won't affect the code. But if you remove those comments, then you can see, well, it's not defined. Well, of course it's not defined because it's not actually code. But you can comment it out, so anytime people go in and look at this code, they can read these comments and kind of understand what you're doing. So I just make little comments for myself. Are they authorized to make server requests? So if my token equals server token, so what this is, so this in JavaScript is not the same as this, which is also coincidentally not the same as this, right? So in order to compare two things to see if they have the same value, you need to use a double equal sign or a triple equal sign. A triple equal sign will go further and make sure not only are they the same value, but if they're the same type. Right now we're just using double equals. So we're saying if my token, so if we look at my token is request.query.token. So if this number matches server token, which server token is this here, which is student group, so if it matches this number, then we're good, okay? They have access, so go ahead and start the rest. And if you go all the way down, so this is where it starts, and I apologize, my curly cues and everything aren't lined up. I don't know what happened to the formatting there. But if you look right here, this is where it ends, so we go back here, else, okay? So if it does, then do this. If it doesn't match, this is where I went and I set every single one of those variables, no permission. So when you're setting variables, if you want to do a string, you have to use quotation marks. So if you want text, you have to use quotation marks. Like see right here, true, false are all in quotation marks, error, quotation marks. If you're setting them as a number, you do not use quotation marks because it's a value. Okay. Let's see here. Alright, let's start here. So var random, so we're taking a variable called random, right? And we are assigning it to the value of math.floor after we do math.random times max plus min. Alright, so I know that that's a lot. We're going to break it down. So, you always do everything in parentheses first, right? So math.random, what does that do? That generates a random number decimal point between 0 and 1. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to take that decimal point and multiply it by our max number, right? 1000. Okay, because if we use a decimal point to multiply, we are never ever going to go above our 1000, because the max that this number can generate is 1. The max that the random generated number will be is 1000, right? And then this is where that 0 and 1 comes into play. So let's say it was 0.01. Because there's some rounding into effect and it rounds down, we want to make sure we don't break anything. So I always assign the min to 1, which is right here. So um, after we generate the random number, after we multiply it by currently 1,000, because that's what max should be set to based on our URL parameters, right? Then we are going to add our min to it, which currently min is set to 1, right? So this says if min is equal to 0, then set it to 1. If it's not equal to 0, it's not going to do anything. Meaning, if they go in and they put, they put 5 here because they want to generate between 5 and 1,000, it's not going to change it to 1. It's going to leave it at 5, right? Okay, let's see here. Where did we leave off? Okay, we got math.random. All right, so we've done with the random, and now that can generate a decimal number, but we don't want to work with decimal numbers, so we use math.floor. What this does is it rounds down to the nearest whole number if it's a decimal point. Now we're going to do a little bit here. We're going to say, okay, so if random, so if the number that we generated is less than or equal to the max, which is 1,000 times percent decimal. So our percent decimal is 0.1, so 1,000 times 0.1 is 100. So if it's less than or equal to 100, that means it is within that 10% chance probability that we were looking for. If that's the case, then we want to assign the variable result the value true, all right? And we'll use that later. But if random is greater than max times percent decimal, which is 100, so if random, we generate a random number between 0 and 1,000, and it's greater than 100, well, then it's not within that 10%. So we assign false to the variable result, right? And then what I do is I throw in an else here for errors, because I want to know if there's something broken in here, and this is going to tell me. So basically, if it's less than or equal to 100, you get a true. If it's greater than 100, you get a false. We should not get this error, but if we do, I want to know about it. Now here's the if not authorized, let them know about it. This is where we changed all of that. Now, that's pretty much the majority of it. That's how it all works here. We'll get into how to get it back into Manychat in just a second. I did put an example of how it looks populated with the numbers that we were talking about before. And you can see my write-up here. I'm not going to go over all of this because we just did, so to speak. Now, we're going to format the data into JSON and send it back to Manychat. So Manychat understands JSON as responses, right? That's what Manychat uses. If you look at the Manychat API, actually, let's go ahead and pull that up. You look at the Manychat API, and I think the best one is, subscriber get info. And you look right here, this is the information that Manychat sees. This is all in JSON, right? If you look back at my script, I formatted everything in JSON as well. Now, where I could have just passed the randomly generated number or the true/false, like I said, I wanted to open it up to more possibilities for people, where if they wanted to use some of these other numbers, they could, or if they wanted to change them dynamically, they could as well. And we'll talk about that in just a second too. So what we're doing is response.json. So when you go up here, you can see request response, right? So it needs a request and response. So the request is right here. The request, and when the request comes in, then we need to do all of these calculations, run this code, and then we need to send a response back, right? Because that's what it's expecting. Manychat is expecting a response, and we send that back in the form of JSON. Okay, so JSON, my object is called results, and then I have the little categories within. So min I set to the variable min, max I set to the variable max, percent I set to the variable percent, random to random, result to result, which means all of these numbers up here that we generated and all of these numbers that were defined by the URL parameters are now being passed back to Manychat, including whether we're within that percentage range and random number generated. And that's it. So that's the response. And then right down here, this is for the server to listen to requests. This basically states that, okay, it's looking for it's looking for someone to access the server using this URL or this endpoint of this URL, right? Along with the URL parameters that were defined. So that is pretty much it. If you wanted to change things dynamically, you can, go ahead and you can actually add whatever you want. Let's see, testing. You can actually add like a location or something like that into the URL, so you can use custom fields and stuff like that. So 7019. And if you look, actually, that's really cool. If you look, if we copy this entire URL and we actually put this into our browser, it shows us the JSON. Now, when you get the JSON back, again, have to map it, right? So when you get this response, have to map it. Okay. So when you're doing the JSON mapping, this one's actually really easy. So you start with a $sign, and then the first one is going to be your object, right? So we go down here, and this one is going to be results. Okay, so that's how we need to start with. And you can see when we're doing our JSON pathing, each and every single one of these start with results. So we're saying, okay, start here, results. Now, then we separate that with another period, and then we go to our categories, right? Min, max, percent, random result. Min, max, percent, random result. These are what you're looking at right here. You're not dealing with this. Alright, so these could be different. So let's say this is result underscore 1. Alright, you're using this value for here and not this value. Okay, it's important because they could be different. Right now I set them the same for ease and simplicity. Alright, so what that's saying is taking that value, so now it's going to take this, which is a variable defined by everything that we did up here. So result is either true, false, or error, and random is the randomly generated number. And it's going to assign those to the custom fields. It's really important to have that pathing down as well and get all those responses back. So let's go ahead and test requests. So again, number is 680. So the really cool thing is you could do, okay, I want this to be generated between 6 and 60. And I want it a, let's do a 90% chance. Okay. And it can change everything on the fly, and it's very accurate. So let's say we want to do it a 50% chance. Okay, so let's test the request again. So the random number is 46. On 60, well, that would be a 30, since 46 is bigger than 30, provides a false. Let's look at it again. 38 again over 30, still a false. Again, this one's 10 under 30, it's true. Okay, I can change this to 10 if I wanted to. I could change this to 56,873, and it's still going to generate a random number and give me my 50%, whether it's true or false. So you can literally generate a random number with any specifications that you want. So what I'll do is I will go ahead and post the video. I will also post the link for the template, and I will also post the link for the server.js, where you can download and look at the JavaScript and play around with it. As always, if you guys have any questions or comments or anything, please let me know if there's something you want to see. Let me know that too. I really greatly enjoy finding challenges and overcoming them. So thanks guys, and as always, happy bot building.